This is the iPad 9, and as someone who's been using the iPad 8 since it's been out, I have to ask myself, did Apple do enough? We've got a new processor, a new front-facing camera, a True Tone display, and one other change that may be the most important update. So let's take a closer look at the iPad 9, talk about what I liked and what I didn't like, and see if it's a good fit for you. The size and the design haven't been updated, with one exception. We have the same large bezels at the top and the bottom. We still have a home button with the older style Touch ID, and the only noticeable difference is that the silver model now comes with black bezels instead of the white ones on the iPad 8. We're still getting a lightning port for charging and accessories, so we didn't see a change there like we saw with the iPad mini 6, where Apple upgraded to a USB-C port. We also have two speakers at the bottom, just like with the 8, and although the display isn't exactly the same, it's still 10.2 inches. As far as biometric authentication, we're getting the previous generation Touch ID, which is integrated into the home button. As far as functionality, it's always worked great for me, and the only reason why I would like to see it replaced is the possibility of getting rid of the larger bezels and then either making the iPad itself smaller or more likely making the display larger and keeping the same footprint. Speaking of the display, it's a 10.2 inch 60 Hz Retina display with a resolution of 2160 by 1620 and 264 pixels per inch. It's a non-laminated display, meaning that there is a gap between the display and touch layer and cover glass. When you're actually using the iPad 9 to watch content, to surf the web, to use different apps or play games, you don't really notice the difference between that and a fully laminated display because you're mostly looking straight on. You're more likely to notice it if you're using the Apple Pencil and you're looking at an angle, at which point you see the separation between the tip of the pencil and the content that's being created. Now, another area where it's possible to see this gap is if you look at the edge of the display, where it appears as if the image is under a sheet of glass. With a fully laminated display like what we have on the iPad mini 6, the iPad Air 4, and the iPad Pro, all three layers of the display are fused together, so the image looks like it's right on top of the display. Now, if you give me the choice, I'll always pick a fully laminated display. But when I'm using the iPad 9, it's not really something that I ever notice unless I specifically look for it. One advantage of a non-laminated display is that if you scratch or crack the glass, it's less expensive to repair because you're most likely only ruining the cover glass, and it's much less likely that you actually damage the display itself. With a fully laminated display, the entire display assembly would have to be replaced regardless, which of course is more expensive. Now, the one change to the iPad 9 display when compared to the iPad 8 is that it's now a True Tone display. That means that there are sensors that can detect the color temperature of the light in your environment, and then they can make adjustments to how the image looks so that white always appears as white rather than yellow or blue. Now, overall, the display has worked well for me for watching videos, for surfing the web, using different productivity apps, taking notes, and of course for playing games, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Now, as far as battery life, the iPad 9 is rated for 10 hours of surfing the web on Wi-Fi or for watching video, and 9 hours if you're using cellular data. So far, it's been really good, and of course it depends on things like what apps or games you're playing, and then the brightness of the display. And if you're interested in more detailed battery tests, let me know in the comment section. Now, one of the few major upgrades to the iPad 9 was the front-facing camera. The new ultra-wide 12-megapixel f2.4 camera is a significant improvement over the 1.2-megapixel camera on the iPad 8. Not only does it offer higher resolution at 1080p at 60 frames per second, it also offers a feature that I've only had, until now at least, on the iPad Pro, and it's called Center Stage. Now, this feature is also available on the iPad mini 6, and it essentially uses the 2x zoom out capability of the ultra-wide camera together with artificial intelligence to identify a subject and then track it as it moves through the frame. So as you walk around, it will look like the iPad is panning or tilting to follow you. Now, I use this feature for video calls with FaceTime, for Zoom, and you can even use it with TikTok, which I actually really like because it can help make your videos seem less static. Quick tip, if you don't see this feature working for you with TikTok or any other compatible app, just open the app, swipe down from the top right to get the control center. You'll see a button for video effects, and you can enable Center Stage. By the way, if you're getting value from this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Now, moving on to the rear-facing camera, we're getting a wide 8 megapixel f2.4 camera with a 5x digital zoom and HDR for photos. If you have an iPad 8, this is the same camera that you've been using. As far as the audio system, we're getting speakers at the bottom of the iPad. And that means that if you watch content or play games in landscape mode, the audio is going to come out of one side rather than with stereo speakers like on the iPad Mini 6, the iPad Air 4, or the iPad Pro. Now, I don't mind this very much when I'm viewing content, but it's more noticeable when I'm playing games and I'm trying to identify where footsteps are coming from. Now, the nice thing about the iPad 9 is that we're still getting a 3.5mm headphone jack, so I'm always wearing a headset when I'm gaming, and I'm usually wearing headphones when I'm watching content. And when it comes to multitasking and performance, the iPad 9 comes with iPadOS 15 and all the new multitasking enhancements that I covered in my favorite iPadOS 15 features video. We've got split view, slide over windows, the new multitasking menu, quick note, and a lot of other useful features that help improve your productivity. When you're using this 10.2-inch display, there's plenty of space to work with multiple apps. And for the most part, as far as screen real estate, I don't really notice a major difference between the iPad 9, the iPad Air 4, and the 11-inch iPad Pro. Now, of course, those more expensive models have other advantages, but I'll cover that in future videos. As far as processing power and performance, another one of the upgrades on the iPad 9 is the new A13 Bionic chip. So Apple reports that it provides CPU, GPU, and neural engines that are 20% more powerful than the A12 chip we have on the iPad 8. For multitasking, the A13 offers plenty of power, and when I was viewing content and using multiple apps at the same time, even though we didn't get an upgrade in RAM and we're still getting 3 gigabytes, the iPad 9 felt snappy and responsive. Now, an area where you may appreciate this added power is with gaming. So personally, I've had no issues gaming on the iPad 8, but I'm always going to want more power because games are becoming more resource intensive as time goes on. The new A13 chip, combined with Apple's outstanding history of long-term support for older devices, means that it's always a good idea to have a device that offers more processing power than you need right now. In this case, I'm happy to have this additional headroom for gaming so that I can continue to play on the iPad 4 for many years. I get a lot of questions about PUBG and FPS, and I've been playing on Extreme with no problems. And if you have any other questions, let me know. I've also been playing games using Xbox Game Pass and then pairing an Xbox controller. It's been a ton of fun, and the iPad 9 has had no issues at all. Another important update that will impact gaming and the longevity of the device has to do with the upgraded storage. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the port and accessories. So I mentioned earlier that the iPad 9 still uses a Lightning port, so all your older accessories and dongles are still going to be compatible with it. It's also a good match if you have an iPhone because you can repurpose your charging cable. At some point, we may see Apple move the iPad to USB-C, but with all the iPhone 13 still using Lightning, it seems like they just weren't ready. Now, the Lightning port also means that the iPad 9 is still compatible with the first generation Apple Pencil, which pairs and charges using this port. Now, this leaves the iPad 9 as the only current iPad that still uses the first generation Apple Pencil. As far as usability, the first generation Pencil works great, but it's less convenient to store and charge than the second generation one. Now I want to get to one of the updates that I think could possibly be the most important one. I read and try to respond to as many comments as possible, so I know that a lot of users had a tough time choosing the right iPad 8 because they knew that 128 gigs of storage was more than they actually needed, but at the same time, they were worried that 32 gigs just wasn't gonna be enough. Now, I have a dedicated video where I talk about it, but with the iPad 9, Apple doubled the storage, so now the options are 64 gigs for $329 and 256 gigs for $479. Now, I can do a follow-up video about storage size, but as a rule, if you're going to use this device just for content consumption, for using productivity apps, and then for playing a few games, 64 gigs should work just fine for you. And if you're planning on taking a lot of photos and videos, or maybe doing video editing or downloading a lot of big games, then you may want to upgrade to 256. If you're looking at the cellular model, the iPad 9 supports 4G LTE, so it looks like Apple is keeping 5G for the higher end devices. And my guess is that this was also a way to keep the price down. If you're choosing between the iPad 8 and the iPad 9, my choice would come down to the price difference. So if you can find an amazing deal on the iPad 8, I would jump on it. If you already have an iPad 8, I'm not sure that the iPad 9 is a worthwhile upgrade, unless you need more storage, at which point you might as well get all the other benefits of the improved camera system and the upgraded chip. I also read in the comments section that people were able to get crazy high trade-in value for their iPad 8, and they were able to upgrade for about $70 and double their storage. So that's something you may want to explore. If you want to learn more, watch this comparison of the iPad 9 and the iPad 8. Click on my face to subscribe. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.